Hi, Jennifer Holmes here, president of MIS Solutions, and most businesses have a main application that is core and central to their business, whether it's finance, manufacturing, dispatch, distribution, or scheduling. This is the glue that holds their organization together, and oftentimes we are called in by prospects on a failed vendor relationship. So, Liam, how do companies avoid getting themselves in this position?
Well, I think oftentimes what we see is that we come in with a customer and they've taken an application and they've had a lot of customizations that have been written for that application. And oftentimes they have trouble moving from one version to the next because those customizations have to be changed or modified or upgraded or updated. And sometimes maybe even the relationships with the people who wrote those customizations don't exist anymore. So the first thing I would tell you is that customizations are something that you really want to try to avoid if humanly possible, because over the long haul they can actually represent a pretty significant risk to your business. Some of the other things that we see is if you have an application where there's a key support person at an organization and that key support person is no longer available, but you haven't built relationships with other people at that vendor, then that can sometimes put you in a bit of a situation where you no longer have quality support with somebody who understands you, understands your business and your culture. I think also one of the things that we see is you may have one or two people in your organization that have a lot of tribal knowledge. They're the only people who know how to do this or know how to do that, or know how to do month-end kinds of things. And when that person leaves, then nobody knows quite how to use the software and how to carry on in their absence. And that's not an uncommon thing. Another thing that we also see is support contracts. People who maybe they had some customizations, and because of those customizations they did not keep their support contract current because they weren't able to upgrade to the latest versions of those applications. And when they get in a crisis and they need support, they don't have a contract ready with a vendor who understands them and their culture to be able to step in and help out. So I would say to you that a support contract is often one of the things that we find missing with a customer who is in crisis.
Okay. So, we run into that type of situation. So how do companies avoid getting in this place where this application that they're trying to support is core and essential, and they're running into major issues? How do they prevent getting in that predicament in the first place?
Sure. So there's a few things that you can do, right? The one thing I would say to you is you always want to make sure that as you're picking a vendor, that the database that they use to store all of your information is not a proprietary database. So if at some point in time you either need to buy add-ons to other products, or maybe you need to change from that application to something else, that you're able to get your data out and you're able to move it to whatever the next application is. That's a very difficult thing to do with a closed database in which you don't have access to the data. So I'd say to you, number one, make sure that you have access to your data by using a common database. Something like Microsoft SQL Server is a very common one that we see. I think you also need to make sure that you do keep your contract current with the current vendor, so you have support. And I think it's also very important to make sure that you document your standard operating procedures so that even if it's only one or two people that do a particular function, that function is written down, well documented, that somebody else could step in their absence if you needed to. And last of all, always make sure that you have very good backups, that you test those backups. Again, this is something that's going to be very core and central to your business, so it's important that you know that you're able to recover. It's not uncommon that we get a call from a customer who is using an application, the application is just fine, but for whatever reason it either crashed during an upgrade or they had some sort of problem, maybe a power outage or a virus, and now they're in a situation where that application no longer works. And if they had good backups, they would be able to simply restore from those backups and be able to move on. So I would say there's a couple of things that would really keep you out of the ditch with your vendors and make sure that you're not introducing a significant amount of liability to your business.
Yeah, and just as a recap, I would avoid customizations like the plague if you possibly can, because every time you customize and there's changes in the OS or other applications, it's another piece of baggage that you have to carry around. The other thing that, like Lliam said, pick a standard database so that at one point, if that company, is not the right fit for you, you can move your data. That's critical. And keep your current contract, with the vendor current. Keep it current, because if you don't, then you may call support one day and they may say, you're not on a current supported version, sorry, we can't help you. And then what do you do on an application that is core and central to your business? And you may think, well, that'll never happen to me, but I can tell you that I get phone calls on a regular basis where that does happen. So if you have more questions about picking the right application that's sort of forward-looking or future-proofing for your business, don't stress, call MIS.